Hold on. There we go. Add stage. You know what? We had a perfect show last game.
We did. We were so close.
We did it last game, so it doesn't matter. We had the perfect show in out of place, so I apologize. That's Sarah Lesky. I'm Jamie Thomas. This is Check-In. We are not in our studio. We've been punted again. The Manitoba Moose are in action today, so we'll give them that. They deserve this opportunity to have the full stage. So Sarah's at home. I'm here at the office. Very pleased to bring you this one as the Jets take on the Utah Hockey Club in the final game of their 3-game road trip. And man, oh man, we have a very good show for you guys, as we always do. But Sam Cosentino is going to join us. He'll be part of the broadcast tonight in Utah. And, of course, Hockey Hall of Famer Mark Howe, one of my childhood favorites, is going to join us a little bit later. Of course,
because he played for the Flyers.
Yes.
Also.
So good. He was such a great player. And anytime you have a Hockey Hall of Famer on the show, it's a good day. Of course, Alexander Ovechkin tied Wayne Gretzky last night. I said he was going to break it last night. He was so close. And I was so close to being right. And I was thinking, I'm like, if he breaks this, I'm phoning Sarah. And I'm going to say, I told you so. So I said Sean Reynolds is coming home. He was going to come home today, but he's got to wait to break it tomorrow as the Washington Capitals will go to Long Island. But it was fun to watch. Anytime you're watching history, and of course Wayne Gretzky's in the building, and there were so many great moments out of that one. But it's a great. We were talking about this last game, Sarah, about all the races that are going on in the National Hockey League and the Eastern and Western conferences for division titles, for wild card spots, positioning, and of course the Alexander Ovechkin chasing greatness is just another great story that's going on in the NHL right now.
Right, which is the reason why we're having Mark Howe on, not just because he's great and obviously, and is a Hall of Famer, but obviously with his lineage being Gordie Howe's son, that we'll have him on to talk a little bit about what it was like for his family when Wayne passed Gordie. And, to give you credit, since you did, and we will set up the game momentarily between Utah and Winnipeg, but to give you credit, yes, you did say that you thought that Ovi was going to end it yesterday. Yeah. So I messaged Sean Reynolds this morning and I said to him, what was it like in that building? And he said, man, when he went on that run of shots later in the game, it was like a bomb was about to go off every time. Insane energy, like nothing I've ever experienced. Every time he scores, it's the kind of reaction you would get from a Game 7 double overtime game winner in front of that crowd. It's crazy. And then he said, and I said, what, amazing, how phenomenal of an experience for you to be able to be there in person and witness it. And he said, Jamie was almost bang on.
So close.
So
it was. Did you get a chance to watch? Were you watching it last night, Sarah?
I was in bits and pieces. I had some other stuff going on as well, so I wasn't able to give it my full attention. But certainly, once he got to the 2 goals, then I was trying to stream it as much as possible. But looking forward to seeing, whether he gets it in against the Islanders, or maybe he doesn't, and he gets against Carolina at home in front of those passionate Capitals fans.
Right. Already seeing lots of people wondering about Nikolai Ehlers. Let's go over that win over Vegas before we get into the game against Utah. And, Nikolai Ehlers was in the wrong place, the wrong time. I mean, the first block shot he had to, but one of those things that when you're blocking shots, it's easy for me to say is you never turn sideways. And Ehlers turned sideways and got that puck fully off the ankle. And then on the power play, Perfetti, it looks like the shot was blocked, but it was friendly fire that went off Ehlers. So just speaking with Mitchell Clinton a little while ago, he remains a game time decision. We're not quite sure if he will go. There was only 3 guys on the ice during morning skate today.
Yeah, so let's take everybody through that, Jamie, and we will talk about that win against Vegas in a moment, because I think it was a really important win for a multitude of reasons. But the Winnipeg Jets practiced yesterday in Utah, and so I was pretty excited because Utah, same time zone. Finally, you and I have been hooped by this Pacific time zone over the last couple of games, so we weren't able to, have morning skates having already occurred. So I thought this is perfect. Morning skate's going to be done. We'll have all this information for everybody. But then having practiced yesterday, they did not skate this morning other than those 3. So all we can go by is what was said yesterday, which Nikolai was around the arena So he was walking around, which is a great sign. Number of people saw him out there and reported, and that he is going to be a game time decision for this evening's game against Utah. So what those lines are going to look like, I mean, if he isn't able to go, David Gustafson, based on the practice lines yesterday, draws back in on that fourth line, the left wing. Brendan Tanev moves up. Nino Niederreiter moves up onto that second line. Again, if we're going by what we saw in practice yesterday. So tell me if you've heard this one before, check-in viewers.
Yeah. Watch warm up.
Wait and see what happens during warm-up. Mitchell Clinton's always so great about tweeting out what he sees during warm-up and those lines. So fortunately, do not know. What we do know is so Utah's coming in as well, that they will have Hamelka in it. So he will be making his 20th consecutive start for it. So heavy workload for him right now. But other than that, when it comes to the Jets, unfortunately right now, it is just a wait and see. But
and we've seen the Jets get Hamelka many times in his time, not only with Utah, but of course with the Arizona/Phoenix Coyotes too. So, they've had that happen to them before, but I think it's clear now. Dallas is playing earlier today as well, so the pressure is on, but the Jets answer the bell again, Sarah, right? So it's just like every time their backs are against the wall, in theory, they're still the number one team in the NHL, and I don't know if using the words backs against the wall, but when they're getting pressured, they come up with a big win, and we've seen it many times, and that was as impressive as it gets to shut down Vegas the way they did, shut out Vegas, period.
Yeah, Eric Comrie.
Unbelievable.
The season, 26 saves, outstanding, especially when you look at
the third period.
The third period. I was just going to say they were outshot 14-3 by Vegas. And, I always say that not all saves are created equal. Eric Comrie certainly up to the tall task in Vegas.
Well, what about the save he makes on Mark Stone towards the end of the second period too? Like we don't see the Jets didn't break down at all through the first 37 minutes. And then in the last little bit of the second period, I'm like, oh gosh, here comes Vegas. And it's the last guy you want to see in by himself is Mark Stone. Because how many times have we seen the Manitoban have a big game against the Jets? And then there was Eric Comrie, and again and again. And I give him full credit. And listen, he's not the one having the baby, but the fact that he's able to lock it down like that with that in the background, trying to figure out, and he had another vintage Eric Comrie post-game, media availability. So he said his
phone is on loud every night, just waiting in case he gets the call. But to me, what was really important, and we know that, the game after LA that Scott O'Neill was asked about whether or not it wasn't a statement. What was?
Yeah, when he was asked if it was a statement game.
And so. To me, though, the importance of it wasn't just that they were able to rebound after not playing the way, not getting the result in LA. They hadn't had a lot of success against Vegas. We had talked about it, the struggles that they had. They came out from the beginning. They got to pucks quicker, but also important in the grand scheme of things, because not only are you able to get that win, that keeps that 4-point buffer between the Jets and the Dallas Stars, which we know is going to be key. The Stars are playing this afternoon, so their game will be done before the Jets take to the ice. And so being able to keep that buffer for them was really important. I like the way that they played. I like the way that they responded. And I think that it was important to be able to see that sort of response from this team.
Yeah, and Vegas's power play was number one in the NHL, and that the Jets penalty kill has been phenomenal as of late. They are perfect 10 for 10 their last 5 games. So really, and then we also thought that Luke Schenn wasn't going to play, and then he ends up playing. Jared Anderson-Dolan makes his Jets debut. He was great on the fourth line. So the Jets' depth showing up again in a huge game against the Vegas Golden Knights on Thursday, and now they wait for the Utah Hockey Club. It's still hard for me to not think of a nickname for a team. This Utah Hockey Club thing is still not clicking in at this point. But somebody that I'm sure it is sticking in his brain is a guy that's going to be part of the broadcast tonight for Sportsnet as we bring in a friend of the show. It is Sam Cosentino.
How you doing, Sam?
Well, hello, you two fabulous people.
How you doing today?
I'm feeling really lucky. I got called out of the bullpen on Thursday to come and do this game, and I was so excited for a number of reasons. The first being never been to Utah before, so just to kind of get the vibe of what it's like with this new team here. And number two, to see the Jets in an important game. If you go back to the start of the year and you think, all right, they're going to run away with it, they're going to get 100 points, no problem, and then you look in the rear view mirror and those pesky Dallas Stars are there. So, pretty pumped and feeling pretty lucky and excited to get the opportunity to call this one tonight.
Yeah, it's crazy to me when you think about the fact that the Jets they've been so consistent throughout this season. They obviously had the historic start. You get 15 when you would think that there would be that buffer, or that there had been a massive drop off in the way that the Jets had played in their production in order for this race to be as close as it is.
It's crazy. Like even that 15-1 start, like if you look closely at it, like Minnesota was off to an unbelievable start too, and they weren't too far behind after that. And you're like, wow, there should be some separation here, but there wasn't. And then Dallas, I did a game with theirs in Montreal earlier in the year, and I think the cumulative effect from them having a couple of deep runs, aided to them getting off to a slow start. But I know Pete DeBoer and Steve Spott and the coaching staff, they felt really confident about their group. And then, you go and make a couple of ads, with the guys from San Jose, and of course with Rantanen, and then, they kind of re-energized them, gave them a new twist on life. Wyatt Johnston was one of those guys who earlier in the year, didn't get off to a great start. He's been on fire lately. And so Dallas has come up and here they are, kind of where you would expect them to be, but maybe not as close to Winnipeg based on what we've seen. But the remarkable consistency that the Jets have played with this year has been something fun to watch. And, just when you think there might be an opportunity for a letdown, they go in and do what they did the other night against Vegas, obviously one of the best teams in the league as well.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I was just going to say, jump on that idea of consistency. And, we often think about the top line and the marquee players for the Jets that lead the way for them, and rightfully so. And you need your best players to be your best. But one of the players that has really elevated his game and has become very consistent, I think, when you look at this back half of the season, has been Cole Perfetti, a player that, well and have followed throughout his junior career and up into his years in the NHL now. What is it that you like that you've been seeing from Cole Perfetti that has allowed him to be able to kind of get on this run and evolve his game the way that he has?
I felt very strongly about Cole coming out of the draft, and I think I had him pegged at number 4 that year going to Detroit because he was playing in their backyard in Saginaw. And then when that didn't happen, that raised my eyebrow a little bit. But the guy they took, Lucas Raymond, has turned out to be pretty good as well. I thought Cole would be capable of doing what he's doing right now. I thought it might happen for him a little sooner. But it was interesting because about 20 minutes ago, I walked back from the morning skating availability here in Utah. And I asked Scott Arniel, what is it, who's been really influential on him? And he said, you know what, him and Scheif hang out a lot. But the room in general, because it's an older room, have really taken Cole under their wing. And then another question was asked about his skill and his play and so on. And Scott came back with an interesting answer. It said, in his first 2 years, he was hurt, so it was really hard to prove himself. Last year, after, the All-Star break or whatever it was, he went into a slump. And so he hasn't been able to give his best in meaningful games. And part of that, too, is, there's been a lot of talk about how Bones treated him and so on and so forth. But you also have to earn the right to be able to work through slumps. And Cole's, I think, now at that point in his career where he's earned that right. As a younger player, you don't get the leeway. You don't get the rope because that's just the way it goes. You have to earn your stripes. And that rope is shortened when you're injured and when you're not available. And so when I look at Cole now, it's the resiliency, it's the persistency, but it's also the utilization and the fact that, hey, he's been a second-line guy. He's still young enough where he's going to make mistakes, but now he's been given the rope that when he makes those mistakes, he's not looking over his shoulder. Am I going to be benched for a couple of shifts? Am I going to get bumped down the lineup a little bit? He's confident, and the staff is confident in him that he's going to rebound quickly. So I'd say for Cole, it's his ability to show resiliency and persistency and being strong in his belief that the game that he always had is now evident here in the NHL.
Sam, you talked about a little bit earlier about the Jets' effort against the Vegas Golden Knights. How does a team play as consistent when their backs are against the wall? I know I use that term lightly because they've been first overall for the longest time. But, to answer the bell against Dallas, to answer the bell against Washington, and then to answer the bell against Vegas, what does that say about this team in your mind?
Well, two things. The first thing, it's a really good team. It's deep. I think the ads, like Luke Shen is an $8 million guy. You know what? Some people are going to be hot that I'm saying that. Probably Chevy, because he's going to try and probably re-sign him after this deal's up at the end of next year. But he's an $8 million guy. He's a $4 million person.
Yeah.
He's at least a $4 million player. This guy is unbelievable. He does everything that you've ever wanted out of a guy. And I knew that when that acquisition was made, he was going to fit seamlessly into that room. So when I look at their group on the whole, it's the ads that have allowed them to be consistent, because I think there's an injection of a little bit of newness and our management thinks we're really good. And so we're going to go out and we're going to add some pieces, but we're not going to add so much as to take away from the group that's gotten us here, but add enough around the fringes to give the group confidence that the management believes in them. I think the other part of that is there's been some times in the past where the Winnipeg Jets knew with probably 2-3 weeks, maybe even a month left in the season, what their playoff plate would look like. And I think human nature tells you that it's hard to give it all in those situations when you kind of know what's going to happen. This year, though, the paramount importance on winning the division and being pushed by Dallas to do that here in these remaining games is another element to me that I think has lent to their consistency, to their ability to rebound, to show up against big teams, because this team hasn't really been asked to do that much in recent playoff history. Now they're being asked that, and now they're telling you that they can answer that question. So that's a really important element to me. I asked Scott O'Neill about that this morning, and what's it like to kind of be on edge, And he said, well, I think it's good for our group. I think it's really good that we're getting challenged every night, and it's happened all year long. Even going back, Sarah, to that 15-1 start you talked about. So, I feel pretty strongly about those two elements.
You mentioned, with Dallas right behind them, but what do you think about the West in general? When you look at it, for me, I never saw St. Louis going on the run, obviously, that they have gone on, so that they've even surpassed Minnesota and are sitting in that first wild card spot right now. But just there's still the interest and even though we're looking at the Central Division so much, even in the Pacific Division as to where those top three are going to land. I just think there's a lot of intrigue going with the final week and a half here.
There is. And the flip side of what we just talked about with Winnipeg being on edge, you look at that Pacific, and it looks like it's been ordained here for the last couple of weeks that it's going to be Edmonton and LA in that first round. It's going to be a matter of who gets home ice there, with Vegas, sitting in that top spot. So the West is really, really difficult. It's big. It's tough. It still has speed. It still has skill. It's not quite as wide open. There's pretty good separation now. I guess Calgary's still with a chance maybe to catch Minnesota, but I'd look at St. Louis and say pretty comfortably that they're going to be WC1. And then you look at the other 6 teams and you're confident that that they're going to be there in terms of the 3 division leaders, in the Central and in the Pacific. So for me, it's like, wow, it's going to be really difficult to get out of there. But if I'm sitting there and I'm Winnipeg, I'm like, it's pretty paramount that I want to win the division, because I want a Minnesota or a Calgary in the first round. I don't want to be messing with Colorado or Dallas. And I don't want to be fooling around with what might be the juggernaut St. Louis Blues. So it's pretty important, I think, to go ahead and win the division. But, man, you get to round 2 and it's just going to be the best of the best in the West anyhow. It's still going to be a challenge, but if you can avoid maybe one good matchup, I think you're better served.
Absolutely. Sam, we will let you go. We'll let you get ready for this game tonight. Very happy to hear you as part of the broadcast and appreciate all the insight that you gave us today. And there's a lot of people that have been asking, where's the scarf?
Yeah, where's the scarf, Sam?
So I'm just going to say that next time we have you on, hopefully maybe Maybe we can put in the early request.
I think that's only saved for Kenny and Rennie.
Oh, fine.
Yeah. It's amazing how one piece of like living accessory can bring so much joy to the people. So
yeah, we might try and bring the scarf out tonight for Kenny and Rennie.
Oh, looking forward to hearing you on Kenny and Rennie. Looking forward to hearing you on the call tonight. Thanks so much, Sam.
I get Rennie to send me an OV scarf. Thanks,
Thanks, Sam.
Take care.
So it's really hard to find somebody to follow up Sam Cosentino. So the only way you can follow up a quality individual like that is you dig deep into your contacts, and you need a Hockey Hall of Famer. And who is that Hockey Hall of Famer that we have on this show? And that is the great Mark Howe, who is joining us now from the United States, from the East Coast. And Mark, listen. You're one of my favorite players growing up. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today, and thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Doing well, thanks. So glad to be on the show.
Listen, last night, Alexander Ovechkin ties Wayne Gretzky. It's been 31 years. He's held that record. What was it like watching it, and did you ever think that Gretzky's record was going to be broken?
Well, no, I never thought it was going to be broken. But actually, I did a tiny little bit of research. So my dad beat Richard's record back in '63.
Yeah.
And ironically enough, it was 31 years later that Wayne broke Gordy's record. And now it's been 31 years, and OV will be breaking it. If not tonight, actually, I kind of hope he doesn't score tonight against the Islanders. I hope he scores when he gets back home. So it's, I know Dad, I was at the two games when Dad scored his 544th and 545th. Both were against the Canadians, and both were in Detroit. So it was, it was great to be a part of.
Absolutely. You know what, Mark, I have to say that I hope that he doesn't get it against the Islanders, and he waits until they get back to Washington as well. That atmosphere just looked incredible. And to be able to hit a milestone like that, hopefully in front of home fans, I think would add to it that much more. One of the things that Wayne had said yesterday afterwards was that it was important for him to be in these final games, around these final games, so that when OV passes him, he's there to witness it in person, much like your dad was for him. And so he cited how important that was. Do you know why it was, or do you remember why it was important for your dad to be there?
Well, no, a couple of things about us. Marty and I both played pro, but we have a younger brother, Murray, who was a doctor, but he was trying to be a hockey player, and he actually played on the same team as Wayne up in Toronto back when Murray was like 16, 17-year-old, somewhere around there. And he said, he couldn't get away from Wayne. Wayne was always picking his ears. So the Howe family's known Wayne for a long time. Right. And I think Wayne's relationship with Gordy, I think, was really special. And for anybody that knew Gordy and Colleen, they would always be there to support anybody. And I think they always had the attitude, records are there to be broken. So, I mean, like, nobody thought anybody could ever score more goals than Wayne, but my guess is 31 years from now, somebody's going to break OV's record, and it's hard to imagine, but they're there to be broken. But and I know what a class individual Wayne is. I know how much he gave back to the game of hockey, even when he was playing and was so busy, and it's an honor. So and then. Also, Marty and I were down at Washington quite a bit, like 2 years ago when OV was passing Gordy. And I know the Capitals organization is first class. Ted Leonsis was actually incredible individual, made me feel extremely welcome. And it just made for a great atmosphere. And it's just really good for the game of hockey.
Mark, it was no question about how great of a family you guys had, how great of a mom and dad you had. What did you learn about your dad while he was watching Wayne Gretzky get up to his record and surpass his records?
I didn't learn anything. That's who Gordie Howe always was.
Right.
And I've been quoted a million times saying that as great a hockey player as Gordie Howe was, he was so much better of a person. And instantly I know who's met Gordie Howe and who hasn't. And it's easy to tell because people that know Gordie Howe never ever talk about any of his hockey accolades. It's always about him as an individual. And I just know how I can put him in a group of 10 people anywhere on this planet, and he makes them feel like they're best friends. So but I mean, Gordie Howe did what Gordie Howe always did, and he supports the game of hockey. And like I said, Dad had a fondness for Wayne, so he said, if anybody's going to break my record, I'm glad it was Wayne.
Before we let you go. I'm not sure you've got a chance to watch the Jets this year, Mark. And if you have, is there something that has really stood out to you about how good they are?
No, they had a great year last year. Things kind of fell apart a little bit at the end of the year. So they, they're a good hockey club. I know Kevin Cheveldayoff actually worked for my brother for a lot of years with Chicago in the old American Hockey League, in the IHL, and so I'm always rooting for Chevy too. But Winnipeg's had a great history, and like I said, when you talk about Ovi and you talk about Gordie and Wayne, you can't forget Bobby Hull. And people of Winnipeg got to watch Bobby Hull. I mean, I grew up kind of idolizing Bobby as a kid and watched him. And, if Bobby hadn't gone to the WHA, I think there was a chance he might have had a chance to be right in the same conversation with some of the greatest goal scorers of all time. So, and ironically enough, like if you talk about this, when I talk about Alex Ovechkin, you think of what an incredible goal scorer he is. Mm-hmm. When I talk about Wayne Gretzky, even though I think he had 92 or somewhere, anybody played with him or played it, you don't think of Wayne as a great goal scorer, just a great playmaker and just a great hockey player. And I said that's just how good Wayne was. But but I'm hoping. But get back to your Jets. Yeah, I'm hoping the Jets do well. I know they fell a little short last year, and the fans of Winnipeg have always been very avid and great hockey fans. So I'm hoping they can enjoy a little success in the playoffs.
Well, we enjoyed this conversation with you, Mark. Wishing you all the best, and thanks so much for all you've done for hockey and joining us here this afternoon.
No, thank you. Take care.
See you, Mark.
Okay, bye-bye.
Mark Howe. Okay, that was awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, so as soon as JT starts with this is a thrill because you fanboying over, I mean, and
don't get to do it very often. And I met Gordie Howe actually in Detroit during the Edmonton Oilers Stanley Cup or playoff run in 2006, and it was so cool. Like, you know what I mean? So
for years, my dad had a photo of when I started my career, I was out in Vancouver, and so Gordie was associated with Vancouver Giants too, and was out there. And so I have a photo of myself in a scrum with a number of media sitting there talking with Gordie, which was pretty phenomenal when you look at obviously what an icon he was.
Oh, and he looked like even in his 70s, he looked like he could still play. That's like the crazy part. And Mark's right. When you would meet him and you shake his hand, he's just like a nice person, right? And I love how they just call him Gordie. They don't call him Dad. They just call him
Gordie. Hey, that kind of caught me off guard, to be honest.
Because it's just like everybody else.
And I thought, am I supposed to be? I still sometimes I'll say my mom and dad. I'm in my mid-40s. Should I just be calling them?
But isn't that what you think of? You think of your parents when you talk to players like Mark Howe, when you talk to Gordie Howe, because you realize, my dad loved Gordie Howe. Like that was his favorite.
Yeah, of course.
So, that's what you automatically think of your parents with players like that. So it's just to have Mark on to talk about the pursuit of the record is unbelievable. And I got a graphic here I want to throw up.
Yep.
This is pretty cool. Like, look, there's only been 9 players apparently that have been tied or, part of the record. So Ovechkin is the 8th player to put his name on the list since February.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know a lot of these.
Since 1921. Joe Malone took the lead.
I am not familiar with Newsy, but I have to say that might now go up as one of my favorite hockey names.
Yes, Newsy. Yeah.
Newsy. Yeah.
You can't beat that one. So it's crazy that there's only been 9 players associated with that list as long as the National Hockey has been around in 31 years.
Yeah.
Gretzky. Yeah,
it's pretty incredible. I see a number of people asking again what the lines are for today. Brendan is the latest to ask. Unfortunately, we are not able to tell you what the lines are. The Jets did not hold a morning skate today. What we do know is that Ehlers is a game time decision, so we'll have to see what happens in warm up. Mitchell Clinton, as always, tweets out the lines when that occurs. I know that Ken Wiebe is on this trip as well, so you want to be able to keep an eye out for that. Yesterday at practice, David Gustafson was in, and obviously your second, third, and fourth lines were shuffled around depending on whether or not Ehlers is able to go. So we will have to wait and see on that. This is the fourth meeting of the season, just quickly, between these two teams. The Jets have won 2 out of the 3 so far, a 3-0 win, a 5-2 win, and when they lost in January. If you remember that they played in 4 or 5 days of each other, they played 2 games. The Jets lost the first one 5-2, won the second one 5-2 as well. So the good news with Ehlers is that Scott O'Neill saying yesterday it is not as bad as what they first feared. So we will see whether or not that allows him to be in the lineup this evening. But hopefully, I mean, the great news is that this isn't something that they are obviously thinking that even if he isn't able to go tonight, that would keep him out for any length of time.
Yeah, exactly. Just the way I know Ethan keeps saying just rest him. And I know lots of other comments have come down and rest him for the playoffs. I think once you clinch the Central, you can have that opportunity to clinch. But, further to Ethan, the Jets do have the depth to overcome this. And we saw, they've proven that through the years or through this season for that matter. But, it's always better when number 27 is in your lineup, especially on the power play.
And the power play, Colin Miller making most of his opportunity with that second power play unit. Scott O'Neill saying that it's still a work in progress. The power plays right now, they really only had time to work on it in the morning skate against Vegas. So we'll see what comes of that. Also, Mark Scheifele, because of his goal last game, he's now 1 point back of 800 points. Only Nikita Kucherov has more from that draft year in terms of goals and points. And Scheifele will be the second player in franchise history to hit 800 points when it does happen. Blake Wheeler leading the way at 812.
I'll just think
my little notes for
your fun facts.
Yeah, fun facts.
They also, just think how close Mark is to becoming the franchise all-time leading scorer too. So I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but certainly something to look forward to next season. Well, we're not going to worry about next season because there's a long here. Let's just worry about the current moment as the Jets will take on the Utah Hockey Club to wrap up this road trip. They got a big week coming up next week. Back-to-back massive games against the Central Division with St. Louis and Dallas on the horizon. So again, we appreciate you guys joining us on a Saturday. It's beautiful outside here, finally, in Winnipeg.
Yes, finally. And I do want to make sure everyone remembers that this is the end of the road trip. There is not many opportunities left to be able to see the Jets at Canada Life Center before the playoffs start. They play Monday against St. Louis. I thought that was going to be a first round playoff preview, but with the way that St. Louis has been rolling, it looks like St. Louis will likely, who knows, but will likely be in that first wildcard spot. But still, you've got that. And then they close out their final 2 games of the regular season are at home as well, a week from today against the Edmonton Oilers. And then they close it out on the following Wednesday against the Anaheim Ducks. So there's not much opportunity. And we have seen the sellouts happen inside Canada Life Center. We've seen the atmosphere as well. So, you want to be able to make sure that if you have the opportunity to be a part of it, we'd love to see you down there.
Also, one more thing before we let you go. It is Dale Howardchuck's birthday today. So, of course, from Howardchuck Strong, thanks to everyone who continues to support Dale's foundation to make it a lasting impact in our community. #Howardchuck Strong. So, happy birthday to Dale.
All right. Well, everyone, enjoy the game tonight. We will see you Monday. Yes, it's an
Monday.
Amazon game. I see some people have pointed that out. Yes. We will see you on Monday, though, 12:30. Looking forward to that one because even if it isn't a first round playoff matchup, we'll have lots to talk about as we look back on this road trip, today's game, then obviously setting up what will be a huge week and a big game with the St. Louis Blues in town.
Hey, Sarah, do you think I should show Dylan Mello playing with curling?
Okay, let's do that before we go. And then we got to roll.
We got to roll. We got things to do.
Oh.
Oh, I'm going to fall over. Get there. Get there. It's heavy, isn't it?
Yeah, heavy.
Well, you don't want to leave it short.
Exactly.
It's like golf. You leave it short, it's like,
Okay, so the story quickly behind that was that yesterday they had an hour and a half to kill before practice. And so at the facility that they were practicing at, the oval used for speed skating, this is according to Mitchell Clinton, did not have ice in, but the rink directly beside the practice ice had all the curling stuff. There were a few people hanging around that sheet that were curlers. One thing led to another, as it tends to do. There were a number of players that ended up taking part in it, and Dylan said that was his first time curling. I mean, he was pretty good in terms of all the terminology, I believe. He had all of that going as well. But if you go onto the Winnipeg Jets social channels, you'll be able to see there's some videos of Connor Hellebuck and a couple others curling as well. So it looks like the guys had a good time in Utah yesterday. If you're going to kill some time, I mean, might as well have some fun doing it.
Absolutely. Going to be a great game tonight, as it always is. Thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon, and enjoy your Saturday, everybody.
Thanks so much, everyone, for checking in. We'll see you Monday.